Imagine this scenario. Something has happened 40 miles from your house. You do not know exactly what. The radio is saying very little, but you have done the right thing. You went out, you checked on your neighbor, you brought your family in, and now everyone is home behind a locked door. You are standing in your own hallway with your coat still on, and you have just made the mistake that kills more people than the event itself. What if I told you that in the worst civilian radiation accident in the Western Hemisphere, 249 people were contaminated, and 120 of them carried the contamination on nothing but their clothing and their shoes? Not in their lungs, not in their blood, on their coat, on their boots. Those 120 people could have solved their entire problem by taking off a jacket. Most of them did not know that. What if I told you that this same event went on for 15 days before a single official in that city knew anything was wrong? 15 days of people carrying it home to their children. 15 days of it spreading through a neighborhood, and not one alarm, not one sensor, not one government agency noticed a thing. And what if I told you that the person who finally worked it out was not a scientist, not an inspector, not an emergency service? She was a housewife. I am going to walk you through 9 mistakes. Every one of them is drawn from what actually happened in that city. And every one of them is a mistake I still watch preppers make today. People with full pantries, people with gear, people who have thought about this for years. The mistake is almost never the shelter. It is the doorway. Let us start there. You walk in wearing what you wore outside. That is it. That is the mistake. It sounds too small to matter, and it is the single most repeated failure in every contamination event on record. Here is what most people picture when they think about fallout. They picture a cloud. They picture something in the air, something they breathe, something that finds them wherever they are, and there is nothing to be done about it. That is not how it behaves. Fallout is dust. It is physical. It is ground-up building and ground-up earth thrown into the sky and then dropped back down. And it lands on things. It lands on your shoulders. It settles in the brim of your hat. It works into the tread of your boots, and it stays there. And then you carry it across your own threshold and put it down in the one room where your family is going to sit for the next 2 days. The figure that comes out of decontamination work again and again is that removing your outer layer of clothing removes up to 90% of what you picked up. 90%. For a jacket, there is no piece of equipment you can buy that gives you a 90% improvement for $0 and 11 seconds of effort. There is no filter, no suit, no shelter upgrade that competes with that number. The threshold rule. The outer layer never crosses the doorway. Coat, hat, boots, gloves, outer shirt, they come off outside. Not in the hallway, not in the mudroom. Outside, on the far side of the door. And I want you to notice something about those 120 people I mentioned. They were not the unlucky ones. They were the ones whose contamination was still fixable. They were the good outcome. The other 129 had it on their skin, or inside them. You do not want to be in the second group, and the thing that decides which group you land in happens in the first 15 seconds after you get home. The second mistake is quieter, and it is the one I find hardest to talk people out of. You assume you will be told. Every plan I have ever read has this assumption buried somewhere inside it. The sirens go off, or the phone alert comes through, or the broadcast interrupts, and then the plan starts. Everything before that moment is normal life. Let me tell you what happened in Goiânia, Brazil, in September of 1987. 2 men were scavenging an abandoned cancer clinic. They found a heavy metal canister and hauled it away, thinking it was worth something as scrap. Inside was a sealed capsule of cesium chloride, about 1,400 curies of cesium-137. They broke it open. They sold the parts on. The scrap dealer took the capsule home. He showed it to his family. He showed it to his friends. Pieces of it moved from house to house across a neighborhood. That was the 13th of September. The authorities did not learn about it until the 28th. 15 days. For 15 days, there was no siren, no alert, no broadcast, no evacuation order. The city carried on. Shops opened, children went to school, and a fatal quantity of radioactive material moved from hand to hand through an ordinary neighborhood. And every single system that is supposed to catch that sort of thing caught nothing at all. The 15-day rule. Assume nobody is coming to tell you. This does not mean living in fear. It means your plan cannot have a starting gun in it. Your plan has to be something that runs on your observation, not on somebody else's announcement. Which raises the obvious question. If there is no siren, and you cannot see it, and you cannot smell it, what exactly are you supposed to notice? Hold that. It is mistake number 6, and it is the most useful thing in this video. Here is the part of the story that most people cannot get past once they hear it. The cesium powder glowed, a deep luminous blue. In a dark room it lit up. It was, by every account of the people who saw it, genuinely beautiful, like nothing any of them had ever seen. So they touched it. They rubbed it on their skin to watch themselves glow. They handed it around at gatherings. Some of them painted blue crosses on their shirts with it. One account describes it being used as makeup. A 6-year-old girl ate a sandwich with it on her hands. None of these people were stupid. Not one of them. They were shown something that looked magical, in a world where nothing had told them otherwise, and they did what any of us would do with something beautiful and strange. They shared it. And this is the mistake, and it is not about cesium. The curiosity rule: contamination does not announce itself. Your instincts are built for threats that look like threats. Fire looks dangerous. A snake looks dangerous. Rot smells wrong, and your body pulls you back before you have finished thinking. Radioactive dust has none of that. It does not sting. It does not smell. It does not hurt when it lands on you. There is no moment where your body sends up a flare and says stop, which means the only thing standing between you and it is a decision you made in advance, before you were tired and cold and out of information. That is the whole of prepping, really. Every rule in this video is a decision you make now, so that you do not have to make it later, when you will make it badly. You get the outer layer off. Good. Now you wash. And here is where almost everybody undoes the work they just did. You wash the way you always wash. Warm water, soap, shampoo. And then, because it is the next bottle on the shelf, and your hands have been doing this for 40 years without your brain involved, conditioner. Do not use conditioner. Think for a second about what conditioner is designed to do. It is engineered to bind to the surface of your hair and stay there. It resists rinsing. That is not a side effect. That is the entire product. So when there is fine dust in your hair, conditioner does exactly what it was built for. It grips those particles and it holds them against your scalp. And now you have taken something that was sitting loosely on the outside of your body, and you have glued it to your head. The binding rule: shampoo only. Nothing that is designed to stay. Warm water, not hot. Hot water opens the pores of your skin and increases what gets absorbed. Warm. Do not scrub hard enough to break the skin. Broken skin is a door, and if you have no running water at all, this still works. A damp cloth, wet wipes, face, neck, hands, anywhere that was exposed. Blow your nose, wipe your eyelids, wipe behind your ears, wipe inside the folds where the skin creases. Every wipe comes off you and goes in the bag. 9 words that are worth more than most of the gear in your house. Outer layer off, shampoo only, no conditioner. Wipe everything. Now here is the one that will change how you think about the map. Ask most people how contamination spreads, and they will describe weather. Wind carries it. Rain brings it down. Draw the plume. Work out which way it is drifting. Get yourself upwind. That is the mental model, and it is not wrong. It is just badly incomplete. In Goiânia, the cesium traveled as far as 100 kilometers from the source. It was not carried that distance by wind. It was carried by commuters. People with it on their clothes got on buses. They went to work. They visited relatives in other towns. They sat down on seats that other people sat on afterwards. The material moved at the speed of the transport network, in the directions the transport network goes, which is nothing whatsoever like the way weather moves. The 100-kilometer rule. Contamination travels on people, not just on wind. Sit with what that means for your plan. It means the friend who drove in from the next county to check on you is a vector. It means the neighbor who comes to your door because he saw your generator running is a vector. It means the family member who insists on coming home is a vector. And this is the hardest sentence in this entire video, because you are not going to turn them away, and I am not going to tell you to. So you do not turn them away. You meet them outside. Outer layer comes off on your porch, not in your kitchen. Bag it. Same rule as your own. The threshold rule does not care whose coat it is. Anyone who crosses your doorway in what they wore in has just undone everything you did. I promised you this one back at the beginning. If there is no siren, and it is invisible, and you cannot rely on being told, what are you actually watching for? In Goiânia, the answer came from a woman named Maria Gabriela Ferreira. She was the wife of the scrap dealer. She was not a scientist. She had no training and no instrument and no access to information that anybody else in that neighborhood lacked. What she had was a household. And in her household, people were becoming ill. Not all at once, and not dramatically. Nausea, vomiting, that heavy wrongness that people put down to bad food or a bug going round. One person, then another. Then people who had visited. And she did the thing that 15 days of institutional silence could not do. She noticed the pattern. She worked out that everybody who was sick had been near that thing. And on the 28th of September, she took the remaining material herself and carried it to a public health office and put it in front of somebody. That is the moment the emergency officially began. Everything before that was just a city that did not know. The Ferreira rule. Your first instrument is your own household. Not a Geiger counter, not a broadcast. The people in your house. What you are watching for is a cluster. More than one person, unwell in the same way, in the same window of time, who were in the same place. That is a signal, and it is a signal you can read without a single piece of equipment. And it means one more thing, which I want you to hear clearly. You are allowed to act before you are certain. Maria Gabriela Ferreira was not certain. She had a suspicion, and she acted on it. And acting on it is the reason that event ended when it did, rather than running for another month. Everybody who waited for confirmation got worse. Waiting for certainty is not caution. In this specific situation, waiting for certainty is the risk. You did it right. Outer layer off outside, everything sealed in a bag. Then you put the bag in the hallway. And now you are sitting 11 feet from the most contaminated object in your house for 2 days with a plastic sheet between you and it. Plastic does not stop gamma radiation. Nothing you own stops gamma radiation. What stops it is mass and distance, and the bag gives you neither. The far room rule. The bag goes as far from the living space as you can physically put it. Outside is better than inside. A detached shed is better than the house. The far corner of a garage is better than a hallway. If it has to stay in the building, put it in the room furthest from where the family sits. Close the door, and do not go back in. Bag it twice if you have the bags. Tape it, then wash your hands, because you just handled the outside of a bag full of the thing you were trying to get away from. And while you are thinking about distance, think about the room you are actually sitting in. You want mass between you and the outside world, and you want to be in the middle of the building. Below ground beats above ground. Interior beats exterior. Books, tinned food, water containers, furniture, earth. Radiation does not care what the mass is made of. It only counts how much of it is in the way. The tape around your window frames is not stopping radiation either. It never was. It is stopping dust, and dust is the thing carrying the radiation. That is a very different job, and it is a job worth doing, as long as you are clear about which one you are doing. Somebody in the comments is already typing about potassium iodide, so let us deal with it properly. Potassium iodide works. It is worth having, and it does approximately 5% of what most people think it does. Here is what it actually does. Your thyroid needs iodine. It cannot tell the difference between ordinary iodine and radioactive iodine. So if radioactive iodine is what is available, your thyroid takes it up and holds it, and it sits there irradiating that gland from the inside. Potassium iodide fills the thyroid with the safe kind first. Full tank. When the radioactive kind arrives, there is no room for it, and it passes through. That is the whole mechanism. One organ, the thyroid. One isotope, radioactive iodine. It does nothing for cesium, nothing for strontium, nothing for any of the other things in fallout. It does nothing for your lungs, your bone marrow, your gut, or your skin. It is not a shield. It does not reduce your dose. It does not make it safer to be outside for even 1 second longer than it was before you took it. The one organ rule. It is a tool, not a permit. I labor this because I have watched the psychology of it, and the psychology is genuinely dangerous. A person takes a pill, feels the small click of having done something protective, and then makes a slightly bolder decision an hour later than they would have made otherwise. The pill did not make them safer. It made them feel safer, and then they spent that feeling on going outside. Take it if it is indicated, and take it correctly. Then behave exactly as if you had not. The last mistake is the biggest one, and it is a mistake about time. People plan to clean up afterwards. Somewhere in the back of the mind, there is a picture of the event ending, and then a period of hard work, and then the house being fine again. Scrub it down. Wash everything. Get it back to normal. Let me tell you what cleaning up actually looked like in Goiânia. They screened 112,000 people. They removed over 3,500 cubic meters of radioactive waste. Not sacks, cubic meters. Topsoil, furniture, clothing, roofing, vehicles, whole rooms of people's belongings. They demolished houses, not decontaminated them, took them down and carried them away, because there was no cleaning that would ever make them habitable again. They evacuated residents into the local stadium because there was nowhere else to put a neighborhood. The cesium got into the soil, and the rain took it into the main river of the region. 4 people died. 46 needed treatment for contamination. And all of that came out of one capsule, opened by 2 men who did not know what they had. The 3500 rule. Contamination is not a mess. It is a one-way door. You cannot wash a house. You cannot scrub a garden. There is no version of the afterwards where you fix this with effort and determination. And every hour you spend imagining that afterwards is an hour you are not spending on the only part of this you actually control, which is the doorway. Everything in this video collapses into that one sentence. There is no cleanup. There is only what you did or did not carry across your own threshold. 9 mistakes. Here they are, short enough to keep. 1. The threshold rule. The outer layer never crosses the doorway. 90% of it comes off with your coat. 2. The 15-day rule. Nobody is coming to tell you. Goiânia ran 15 days in silence. 3. The curiosity rule. It does not look dangerous. It glowed blue and people wore it. 4. The binding rule. Shampoo only. Warm water. Conditioner glues it to your scalp. 5. The 100-kilometer rule. It travels on people, not just wind. Meet them outside. 6. The Ferrero rule. Your first instrument is your own household. Watch for a cluster and act before you are certain. 7. The far room rule. The bag goes as far away as you can put it. Mass and distance, nothing else. 8. The one organ rule. Iodide is one organ, one isotope. A tool, not a permit. 9. The 3500 rule. There is no cleanup. 3,500 cubic meters from one capsule. Look at that list again and notice what is not on it. Not one of those 9 mistakes is solved by equipment. Not one of them requires money. Every single one is a decision, made in advance, about how you move through a doorway. The people who came out of Goiânia in the best condition were not the ones with gear. They were the ones whose contamination was on a jacket. I want to leave you with the woman. 15 days. 112,000 people eventually screened. Every institution in that city. Every system built to catch exactly this. And all of it silent. And it ended because a woman looked around her own kitchen table, counted the people who were unwell, worked out what they had in common, and walked it into a public health office herself. She did not have a Geiger counter. She had attention, and she was willing to act on a suspicion before anybody confirmed it for her. That is the skill. Everything else is a bag and a bar of soap. Now, I said at the start that the doorway is where this is decided, and I have given you 9 ways it goes wrong. What I have not given you is the shelter itself. Where in your house you should actually be sitting for those 2 days, and why the room most people pick is close to the worst one available. That is the next video. Subscribe so you get it. And tonight, before you forget, go and look at your own front door and work out where the clothes are gonna go. Not the ideal spot, the one that exists. Old Ranger, out.